So we're joined now by Lydia Tett-Olet, who's been with me for many years, and Lydia's an excellent advisor within the Kenyan and African community. Lydia, what would you say is the most important thing why people look to you for their insurance recommendations?
Well, I would say, first of all, I would say it's trust, because once people trust you, and that's why they always say it's about the branding. So once you've branded yourself and you're in the right position and your advice is good with different people, because there's also referral. So if you give somebody a good policy, they'll always go and talk about you with someone else, and then it just trickles down to everybody just wants you to give them the insurance. So I think personally is the trust that people have within our community in regards to, I'm going to Lydia to give me the insurance, because sometimes even people come and say, oh, I had this insurance, and then when I start advising them, because it's not just about giving insurance, it's not just about selling, because we don't really sell, we advise. So by the time I finish advising them, like I had a client who had cancer, and she came to me, she's not my client, someone else referred her to me, and when I was talking to her, she called her husband, and she was like, okay, just come and hear what this lady's saying. So because the other person who gave her insurance before didn't really have time to sit with her and give her all this advice. So I think for me is more of trust. That's why people come to me for insurance.
And within the community that you work with, if anybody says to you, is insurance a con, what would be your answer to that?
Well, I would say insurance is not, 100% insurance is not a con. But the thing is, there's some questions that, or there's those little prints, I call them the devil in the details, yeah? If you don't see those devil in the details, if you don't see those little details, and you just sign yourself up for insurance, and you don't read those things, or you don't answer those questions, then when it comes to claim now, then that's the problem. And I always tell people that look at the person who is expertise in that area, because all of us we are experts in everything we do in different sectors that we are in. So let somebody who is qualified in doing insurance to advise you the right way, because people are always running for cheap, and cheap is always expensive. So if you go and get insurance because it's cheap, and then now when you want to claim, you can't claim. So that's when he says cheap is expensive, because now it's costing you.
So professional advice is one thing that you'd always recommend. And obviously, as you touched on the trust, within your particular community as well, do you find that there's certain issues that maybe the community that I operate in doesn't have so much, such as sickle cell? Is sickle cell something that you can get insured for?
Well, that's a little bit tricky, because it's not all providers that do that. There's only few providers that give sickle cell patients, and sickle cell is actually a very big thing in an African community, or let me say black community. There's a lot of people who have sickle cell, but there is some companies that will give you insurance, will insure you if you have sickle cell.
So anybody out there currently who hasn't thought to contact you because they didn't think sickle cell or HIV would be covered, your advice is to give you a call as a professional advisor, and let's see what we can do when we do the detailed investigation.
Yes, so what I always tell people is don't write yourself off, because a lot of people write themselves off, because somebody thinks, oh, because I'm probably older, or my BMI is bad, or I'm sick, I have all these things, I'm not even bothered. So don't write yourself off. Be bothered and call an expert to talk to you and advise you the right direction.
And the one thing as well is you look after your clients, obviously, and you constantly keep them up to date with what's in the market. You touched on earlier about referrals, and it's very important because your clients trust you that they do refer you on. And obviously, you're very well known within the Kenyan community. So would you say that it's important to go with the correct company, with the correct compliance, to just make sure that your clients have complete peace of mind that when they actually need the policy, it is going to be there for them?
Of course. And that's why I said, again, I'll say it's important to go to somebody who that is their area of expertise, because then they will know that this provider is not good for you. and this provider is the best for you because when we're advising people for insurance, there's factors that we factor in before we can even give you a quote. Because sometimes people call and say, yeah, but that I saw on TV or radio they were saying it's £5. I say there's nothing for £5. They say from £5, and then now we have to factor these 5 things in and then see, is it £5 you're going to pay? Is it £20? Is it £50? But every single person is different, and nobody can be paying the same amount with the other person. And that's why it's very important to speak to somebody who knows what they're saying or knows what they're doing to direct you to the right provider, because not all providers, there's no cut on stone.
So you think really at the end of the day that it's exactly the same for both communities that we operate in, that it's not the cost, it's the level of the solution to the problem that people have. So that once people realise the problem, then the premium fades into insignificance. It obviously has to be affordable, but the one thing that people are looking more than anything is if they take insurance out with a professional advisor like yourself, then at the time of need they are going to be covered. Is that the most important thing?
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes, or the people who normally cancel their policy is because they don't know the importance of the insurance. So like you rightfully said, it's not about the premium, or it's not about how much they're paying. That's what the premium is, just to speak in a later man. It's not about how much I'm paying every month, but it's why am I paying it? So it's the why, it's not how much. So if you understand the why you're paying the insurance, then no matter how much I'm paying will not factor in. But it's because a lot of people are looking at, how am I paying? So if I'm struggling financially, the first thing I'll think of is I'm going to cancel my insurance. But that shouldn't be the first thing I'm thinking about. And the reason I'll think about that first is because I don't know the importance of having the insurance.
So because you do such a professional job for the clients who have joined you at different times, they don't look to cancel the insurance because they actually know the reason, which is the most important thing. Because if you don't understand the reason, then £10 could be expensive.
Yeah.
But if you do understand the reason, then £50 could be cheap.
Yeah, and so that's the why.
It's all down to the why. And have you found in your community that people, before they understood insurance, crowdfunded? If anyone was ill or died, did people have to crowdfund?
Yeah, and because in my community, because I'm from Kenya, and the Kenyan community is totally different, even though we are Africans, but in Africa as a continent, we still have we have similarities, but we also have different cultures a lot and tradition. Because I know in my country we have something called Harambe. Harambe means contribution. And I remember that, like, I have a Nigerian friend, and if I tell them that we collect money, what we do if somebody was to pass on, they don't do that. So their culture is totally different from my culture. So in my culture, as a Kenyan culture, we're used to Harambe, like we're used to giving. We're a community that stands with each other. But it's gotten to a point of now everybody's struggling. That Harambe is dying off because we don't have enough money to do that. Like, let me make you laugh. Before, a long time ago, if your child is coming to the UK, everybody will gather together and they'll give money for that child to go to the UK. That is called the community spirit. That's where I come from. But now you can't even tell anybody that, because they'll be thinking, are you okay? Who is giving you money for doing what? So now it's faded down that nobody's giving that money anymore. Somebody will pass on and people start saying, oh, we need to do Harambe. As much as we still do it as Kenyans, but we are doing Harambe for probably your body to be repatriated. What happens to your children? What happens to the people you've left behind? So you're leaving your children broke and broken. So those two combinations is very bad.
So the most important thing, what you're saying, is in today's ever-changing world, that you have to look after yourself and your family, and one of the best ways to guarantee their financial safety and stability is to talk to someone like yourself, a professional advisor who can give them the help they need to make sure it's not going to cure the grief, but it's certainly going to cure the financial impact.
And because, again, as an African community, there's insurance is not so much in our culture, so that's why it's hard to penetrate in that community, but it's because we didn't have the knowledge. But once they know the knowledge, because they always say knowledge is power, but it's only power if it's implemented. If you don't implement it, it's useless. And also, we talk about generational curses a lot. So we're trying to change that. Stop talking about generational curses. Start talking about generational wealth. So how do we build the generational wealth? And insurance is just one of the platforms that will build the generational wealth. So that's what we're trying to now impact and teach our community.
Have you seen over your time as a professional protection insurance advisor with Tavistock that when people do become knowledgeable about the industry, they engage more with the product? Mm-hmm. So with what the work you've done by educating and informing people about what various insurances can do for their personal situation, it then becomes easier for them to recommend it on to their friends and family to make sure they're covered in the way that you'd like them to be.
Yeah. In fact, I have a client who, she's from, I think, this country, she's from West Africa. Oh, what's her country? That's really bad. I've forgotten
Ghana.
my clients. No. But Cote d'Ivoire. Yeah. And she was like, oh, I need this for my community. I need to tell my community this. So let me wait. When mine goes through, I'm going to tell my community because we don't know about this. And she only saw one of my little videos when I posted on Facebook, and she was like, wow, this is interesting. And she heard about the message, and she called, even though she speaks French, but she still understands a little bit of English here and there. So she was like, I'll tell my people in my community. So when somebody understands the knowledge behind it, they want to share it out with their people.
What would you say is the most satisfying thing that you've done for your community in providing insurance products?
Well, I've lost 3 of my clients, and it's sad I've lost my clients. It's not anything that I would like to say that, oh, they got paid, but just the fact that made me know for sure that insurance actually works, because then the payout was given. So for me, I wouldn't say that's satisfying because somebody actually passed, but I would just say that, yeah, I know that insurance actually works.
But at least the family, it's not going to replace the grief and the loss, but at least it must have given you real pride in the fact that family was not financially impacted any more than they needed to be.
Yeah.
Because to have grief and financial loss is huge, but to have the grief, but you've still got the finances there to get you through a difficult time, that must have been very satisfying for yourself.
Yeah. There's this thing that was going around in our WhatsApp group. There's somebody say that if a rich man dies, yes, people cry, but they cry with style, or they cry with fashion. They just do, because they know the burial is set up. Everything is set up. Nobody's going to go broke, or nobody's going to start, how are we going to feed people? How are we going to, and then after that, they know that now I'm going to the bank, something is left behind, I'm not going to struggle. But when a poor person dies, and it's so sad that somebody say this, but that's the way life is. When somebody dies and they don't have anything left behind for their family, when people cry, that's what you see. And it's true. You see somebody who is well off dead, if they die, people don't cry as much as if the poor person dies, because they're not just crying because this person is gone, but they're also crying because how are we going to cope now? Yeah. This person is gone. They've left nothing behind. School fees, food, rent. What are we going to do? How are we going to survive? And we're trying to change that because everybody cannot be the same. So try to change that through insurance policy. So if you passed on and you can't right now, you can't afford all these things for your children and everything. But when you pass on, at least you still left them with some stability financially.
Correct. Okay, so my name's Andy Gardiner. The company I work for is Tavistock Protect Limited, and I'm joined today by one of the most successful people within that company, Lydia Tett-Olet, who also works for Tavistock. And this is Lydia. Lydia, if you'd like to say a few words on how long you've been with the company.
Well, again, my name is Lydia Tett-Olet. I always like that middle one because it's very unique. There's nobody in this world called Lydia Tett-Olet. I'm the only one. So that's why I have to use the 3.
I do apologize.
Sorry. Well, my name is Lydia Tett-Olet, and originally, of course, I'm from Kenya, but I live in the UK. And I also work with Tavistock Protect, and I've worked with the company Tavistock Protect for almost 7 years now.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's helped me. That's all I can say. And I've learned a lot. from Tavistock Protect.
So Lydia, we've talked a lot about insurance to the community you work with, and very, very similar. I think whatever community that you work in, the motivation is the same. It's to look after your family, yourself and your loved ones in the event of your death or serious illness. So to conclude, what would you actually say to people who are thinking about looking at insurance or who don't understand insurance? What would you say to those people now?
Well, I would say stop thinking, take action. Time for thinking is gone. Take action. And if you're confused and you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know what you want to get, please don't go to this .com, confused.com. That's why it's called confused, because it will just confuse you the more. So don't do that. Just call an expert. You can call myself. You can call, of course, my boss. That's my big boss, by the way. Don't say it. And he can also help you. Or you can also call the company, Tavistock Protect. We also have people there who are actually qualified as well to give advice. But anytime, we're here to help. And I'm happy to help.